Ambassador John Miller stared out the large window of his office. The endless stars beyond the glass matched his dark mood. His office sat in the east wing of the massive council station that orbited Proxima Centauri. For 10 years he had served as humanity's chief diplomat to the Galactic Council. 10 long years of fighting for human interests among the stars today felt different. Miller turned away from the window and looked at the data tablet on his desk. The screen showed the latest proposal from the Zenturian Empire. He picked it up and read it again, his frown deepening. With each word, the Centaurians wanted Earth's resource-rich colonies redistributed among needier species. The fancy words couldn't hide the truth. They wanted to take what humans had worked hard to build. Miller tossed the tablet onto his desk with a clatter. This marked the 27th proposal in 3 years aimed at taking away humanity's territories. Each time the alien species used different words, different excuses. The result was always the same: humans would lose and the other species would gain. Ambassador, your secure call with Earth is ready, said his assistant from the doorway. Miller nodded and sat at his desk. He pressed his palm against the scanner and the holographic display came to life. President Susan Carter's face appeared, looking as tired as he felt. John, we've reviewed the Zenturian proposal, she said without greeting. Her voice sounded firm, resolute, and Miller asked, though he already knew Earth's answer would be no. It always was. But the game required them to keep playing, to keep saying no politely, to keep pretending the council respected their right to refuse. We're done, the president said simply. Miller blinked, unsure he had heard correctly. Madame President, the Security Council met through the night. The vote was unanimous. She leaned forward, her eyes intense. We're withdrawing from all diplomatic channels with the Galactic Council effective immediately. Miller felt his mouth go dry. In 300 years of space travel, humans had never taken such a step. No negotiations, no transition period. None, no explanations either. We've been patient, we've been reasonable. For decades, we've contributed technology, military support and resources, and what have we gotten in return? Manipulation, exploitation. Her voice didn't rise, but the anger was clear. We're done playing their games, John. The council won't understand, Miller said slowly. They'll see it as an irrational human emotional response. Let them, President Carter replied. Maybe it's time they learn that humans have limits. Your orders are to pack up your staff and leave council station within 24 hours. All human ships are being recalled from joint patrols. All technology sharing programs are suspended. Miller nodded, a strange feeling of relief washing over him. For years he had fought losing battles. The council chambers, perhaps it was time for a different approach. What should I tell them, he asked. Nothing they don't already know. That we've contributed more than our fair share. That we've compromised time and again. That we deserve better than to be treated as the council's resource pool and security force. She paused. Them humanity has decided to chart its own path among the stars. After the call ended, Miller stood and straightened his uniform. He called in his staff, 15 men and women who had fought alongside him in this diplomatic war. Pack your things, he told them. We're going home. The news spread through Council Station like wildfire as Miller and his team packed their offices, alien representatives appeared at their doors, demanding explanations. The Volter ambassador, who had always looked down on humans as primitive and emotional, suddenly offered unprecedented concessions. Miller simply smiled and continued packing. The aliens didn't understand yet what was happening. They still thought this was a negotiation tactic. They would learn soon enough. As the human diplomatic shuttle departed Council Station the next day, Miller looked back at the massive structure growing smaller. Through the viewport, the Galactic Council had never truly valued humanity's place at the table. Now they would learn what the galaxy looked like without humans at that table. The first tremors of chaos were about to begin. The whole world watched as President Susan Carter stood at the podium. Behind her, the Earth flag hung still, its blue and green colors bright under the lights. She looked directly into the camera, her face calm but serious. People of Earth and our colonies across the stars, today I speak to you about a decision that will change our future. She began. As of 6 hours ago, Earth has officially withdrawn from the Galactic Council. Across the planet, in homes, public squares, and spaceship lounges, people fell silent. Many had complained about the Council for years, but no one had expected such a bold move. This decision was not made in anger or haste. The President continued. For over 3 centuries, humanity has reached out to the stars in friendship. We have shared our technology. Our soldiers have died protecting Council trade routes, and our scientists have solved problems that alien civilizations couldn't. And how has the Council repaid us? She paused, letting the question hang in the air. They have taken our generosity as weakness. They have tried to strip away our colonies. They have blocked our growth while using our innovations. They have treated humans as useful tools, not as equals. On Council Station, Ambassador Miller and his staff watched the broadcast as they packed their belongings. Around them, alien diplomats gathered in doorways, their expressions ranging from shock to worry. Humans cannot and will not continue in a partnership that isn't really a partnership, President Carter said firmly. We withdraw not to isolate ourselves, but to show the galaxy that humanity will chart its own path forward. We will deal with other species fairly and directly without the Council's manipulation. In his office, Miller placed the last of his books in a box and sealed it. The Volter ambassador, Tursic, entered without knocking. His blue scales seemed paler than usual. Ambassador Miller, this is most irregular, Tursic said. His usual condescending tone was gone, replaced by something close to panic. The Volter Empire is prepared to support Earth's position on the colony dispute. We can arrange an emergency council session today. Miller smiled politely. That's very generous, Ambassador Tursic. Just last week you called humans too primitive to manage valuable resources. Has something changed? Tursic thin mouth tightened. The Council values Earth's contribution. Perhaps we haven't shown this clearly enough. No, you haven't, Miller agreed. But it's too late for new offers. Our decision is final. On the broadcast, President Carter was explaining the practical effects of the withdrawal. All human ships would return to Earth. Controlled space, all technology sharing programs would end, all joint defense agreements would cease. We remain open to fair relations with individual species, she said, but we will no longer accept the Council's authority or its unfair treatment, as Miller's staff carried boxes to their shuttle. Other alien diplomats approached them. Some made threats, others offered deals. Few simply asked what they could do to change Earth's mind. The humans gave the same answer to all: it's too late. In her office on Earth, Defense Secretary Betty Howard watched the reaction spreading across Council space. Reports were coming in of emergency meetings, stock market crashes, and military ships changing course. Did they really think we would tolerate their behavior forever? She asked her aide. They never took us seriously, the young man replied. That was their mistake. On the last human shuttle leaving Council Station, Miller looked at his tired staff. For years they had fought diplomatic battles they couldn't win. Now they had changed the rules of the game. What happens next, sir? Asked his assistant. Miller looked out at the stars as the shuttle pulled away from the station. Chaos, he said simply. The Council has relied on humans for everything from military protection to technological innovation. Now they'll learn what the galaxy looks like without us. As the shuttle jumped to faster than light speed, the first urgent messages from the Council were already chasing after them. Too little, too late. The tremors were about to become earthquakes. Captain Alan Brooks stood on the bridge of the U.S. Defiant, watching the stars through the main view screen. His ship floated at the edge of what used to be Council space. Now, 1 month after Earth's withdrawal, this area had become dangerous. Captain, we have activity on long-range scanners, said Lieutenant Kate Rodriguez from her tactical station. 5 ships with Draxian signatures are approaching the Centurion trade convoy. Brooks nodded. The Draxians were known pirates, but for years human patrol fleets had kept them in check. Now those patrols were gone. How many ships in the Centurion convoy? He asked. 3 cargo vessels and 1 small escort, Rodriguez replied. They don't stand a chance against the Draxian raiders. Brooks walked to the tactical station and looked at the screen. The Draxian ships were moving into attack position. In the past, the Defiant would have rushed to help. Those were the old orders. The new ones were clear: observe but do not interfere. Record everything, Brooks ordered, but maintain our position. The bridge crew watched in silence as the Draxian ships surrounded the Centurion convoy. The small escort vessel tried to fight, but was quickly disabled. The pirates boarded the cargo ships one by one. I'm picking up distress calls, Communications Officer Ben Warren said. They're begging for assistance. They're specifically asking for human ships. Brooks felt his jaw tighten. Send the standard response. Warren nodded and pressed a button on his console. The automated message was simple. This is a human vessel observing from neutral space. We acknowledge your distress. Call but remind you that the human alliance no longer maintains security agreements with Galactic Council members. We wish you safe travels. Cold but necessary. For too long humans had blood to protect alien trade routes while getting little in return. They're responding, sir, Warren said. Centurion Captain is offering immediate payment and exclusive mining rights to the Proxima Centauri asteroid belt. Rodriguez looked up from her station. That's the same asteroid belt they claimed humans had no right to last year. How things change when you need help, Brooks said quietly. For the next 3 hours the Defiant crew watched as The Draxians stripped the cargo ships of valuable goods when they finally left. The Centaurian vessels were damaged, but still functioning, set course for Epsilon Eridani, Brooks ordered. We're done here, as the Defiant prepared to jump to faster than light speed. Rodriguez monitored the Council communication channels. More than 20 separate incidents like this one had happened in the past week alone. Without human ships, piracy was exploding across Council space. Listen to this, Captain, Rodriguez said, putting a transmission on speakers. A Volter voice filled the bridge. Must make immediate concessions to bring humans back. The trade losses this month alone have exceeded our entire defense budget. The Council cannot function without human military support. An Aquilarian voice responded. Perhaps if your empire hadn't tried to steal their colony on Riel Ivy, they would still be here. This crisis is your doing. Brooks turned off the speaker. And so it begins, he said. The blame game on Earth. Defense Secretary Betty Howard reviewed reports from ships like the Defiant. The pattern was clear. Council species were suffering without human help, and they were turning against each other. They're offering us everything now, her aide said. Mining rights, technology exchanges, exclusive trade agreements. Howard nodded. Funny how we couldn't get any of those things when we were playing by their rules. In his new office in Houston, former Ambassador Miller watched news reports about the growing crisis. The Council had called 3 emergency sessions already, all focused on how to bring humans back into the fold. Should we respond to any of these offers? Asked President Carter on the secure line. Not yet, Miller advised. Let them feel what the galaxy is like without us for a while longer. When we do return to the table, it will be on our terms. The first tremors had hit. The earthquakes were just beginning. 3 months after Earth's withdrawal from the Galactic Council, the problems in Council space grew worse. What started as security issues now spread to resources. Many planets began to run low on critical supplies. Dr. Paul Johnson stood in his laboratory on Earth, examining data from his terraforming projects. His work had made 15 previously uninhabitable planets suitable for human life. Before the withdrawal, the Council had often tried to force him to share his methods with other species. They called it fair exchange. Dr. Johnson called it theft. Your new system for Mars Colony 3 is working perfectly, his assistant said, showing him the latest readings. Oxygen levels are already at 60% of Earth normal. Johnson nodded with satisfaction. Without Council restrictions, we've accomplished in 3 months what would have taken 2 years under their rules. Across the room, a screen showed news from Council space. The Zenturian Empire was now rationing food on 3 of its central planets. Without access to human terraforming technology, they couldn't develop new agricultural worlds fast enough to feed their growing population. On the human colony of Epsilon Eridani, Governor Laura Williams walked through fields of golden wheat that stretched to the horizon. The colony had doubled its food production since Earth's withdrawal. Without Council export quotas forcing them to ship most of their harvest to alien worlds, they now had more than enough for themselves and other human settlements. The new irrigation system is working well, said the colony's agricultural director, pointing to the network of water channels running through the fields and The soil enrichment technology, Dr. Johnson sent, is increasing yields by 30%, Williams smiled. For years the Council told us this planet could never be fully productive, yet here we are. Transport ship landed nearby, ready to carry food to Earth and other human colonies. In the past, such shipments would have been taxed heavily by the Council. Now they moved freely between human worlds. Back on Earth, Defense Secretary Betty Howard reviewed reports of growing unrest on Council worlds. Citizens of the Volta Empire had staged protests over food shortages. Aquilarian colonies were struggling without human water purification technology. The Centurions had declared martial law on two of their outer planets. The Council is falling apart faster than we expected, her aide commented. Howard nodded. They built their economies on the assumption they would always have access to human resources and technology. Now they're learning a hard lesson about self-reliance. In a secret meeting room deep below Geneva, President Carter met with her advisors. The wall screen showed dozens of offers from individual Council species, all begging for human return or at least trade agreements. The Volturders are offering us exclusive mining rights to their moon system, one advisor said. The same moon system they refused to let us even visit last year. The Centurions want to trade their vastest ships for our terraforming technology, added another. Carter studied the authors carefully. We're not ready to return to their table, but perhaps it's time for some limited agreements on our terms. Ambassador Miller, now serving as special advisor to the president, agreed. We should start with small, specific deals with individual species, no more broad agreements that the Council can manipulate. On a luxury space yacht near the Proxima Centauri jump point, representatives from several wealthy Council worlds met secretly with human business leaders. They offered enormous sums for technology that was once shared freely under Council agreements. 100 billion credits for water purification systems. A Volta businessman offered 200 billion for terraforming equipment, added a Centurion official. The human representatives listened politely, but made no commitments. They had strict instructions from Earth's government: no deals without approval. Humanity would no longer be exploited. As resource shortages grew more severe, the first conflicts between Council species erupted. The Viters accused the Centurions of hoarding essential minerals. The Aquilarians blocked trade routes in protest over water rights. What humans had dubbed the resource wars had begun, and the former Council members were turning against each other. 6 months had passed since humanity withdrew from the Galactic Council. What began as a shock had turned into a crisis, and now the crisis was becoming a collapse. The Council chamber, once a place of order and procedure, had become a battleground of angry voices and threats. This is your fault, shouted the Centurion ambassador, pointing at his Volta counterpart. You're greedy. Attempts to take human colonies drove them away. The Volta ambassador's blue scales darkened with anger. You were the ones who proposed redistributing their resource worlds. Do not blame us for your mistakes. In the center of the chamber, the Aquilarian speaker raised all 4 of his hands, trying to restore order. Please, esteemed colleagues. Fighting among ourselves solves nothing. We must focus on reforms that will bring humans back to the table. But few were listening anymore. After 6 months of hardship, the council was splitting into factions. Some wanted to court human favor with generous offers. Others suggested using military force to bring the troublesome humans back into line. Third group proposed creating a new galactic organization without Earth's involvement. On Earth, Defense Secretary Frank Nelson sat in the control center of the newly established diplomatic intelligence agency. Wall screens showed live feeds from hidden cameras in the council chamber, as well as data on military movements near human space. Council voted to dissolve their joint military command today, said Olivia Green, the AY's top analyst. Each species is now directing their own ships. This is a significant development. Nelson nodded gravely. Are they moving against us? Green pointed to a star map showing alien fleet movements. The Centaurians have repositioned 3 battle groups near the TACD system. That's too close to our mining operations to be coincidence. And the Viters, they're taking a different approach. They'd been reaching out to smaller species that were ignored under the old council system, trying to build a coalition. Nelson studied the map with concern. What's your assessment? Green didn't hesitate. Centaurians will attempt some kind of military action within the next month. Not a direct attack, but something to pressure us, probably using a proxy species to test our defenses and resolve. And if that happens, how we respond will determine what comes next. If we show weakness, others will try similar tactics. If we appear too aggressive, it could unite them against us. In distant council space on the small planet of Krell, warriors loaded onto transport ships. For generations, the Krell had been ignored by the great powers of the galaxy. Their requests for council membership had been repeatedly denied. Their pleas for technology sharing had been dismissed. Now the mighty Zenturans were offering them advanced weapons and ships. All they had to do was establish a base in a star system called Haw City. The Zenturans assured them it was unclaimed territory, just a small human mining operation that could be easily pushed aside. Chief Warrior Grow inspected his troops with pride. Finally, the Krell would take their rightful place among the stars. If they had to push aside some humans to do it, so be it. Back on Earth, President Carter met with her Security Council. The latest intelligence from Olivia Green's team was concerning. The Centaurians are definitely arming the Krell. Ambassador Miller confirmed. Our sources say they're planning to establish a foothold into city options. Carter asked the room. Admiral Peter Wright spoke up. The U.S. horizon is patrolling that sector. Commander Perry is one of our best. I suggest we let him handle it with the resources already at his disposal. Carter nodded. Make sure he understands the stakes. We need to send a message but not start a war. As the meeting ended, Miller stayed behind. Madame President, this was inevitable. The council is fracturing exactly as we predicted. Yes, she agreed, but now comes the dangerous part. When empires collapse, they rarely go quietly. Across the stars, ships moved into position. The proxy war was about to begin. Commander Richard Perry stood on the bridge of the U.S. horizon, watching the tactical display with growing concern. 20 ships had just appeared at the edge of the TSCD system. They weren't council vessels. Their design was unfamiliar. Analysis Lieutenant he asked his tactical officer. Krell ships are a minor species from the outer rim. They've never ventured this far into developed space before. The officer looked up from her console. Scans show newly installed weapon systems. The technology is Centurion. Perry nodded. Slowly, this matched the intelligence briefing he received from Earth. The Centaurians were using the Krell as pawns to test human resolve. They're heading directly for mining station Alpha, reported the sensor officer. 2,000 civilians work on that station. Perry considered his options. His orders were clear: defend human interests without escalating to direct conflict with major council species. The Krell were being used, but that didn't make them any less dangerous. Battle stations, he ordered calmly. Move to intercept. Let's show them what they're dealing with. On the lead Krell ship, Chief Warrior Growl watched the human vessel grow larger on his viewscreen. Centurion advisors had told him that humans were weak, that they would retreat rather than fight, but this ship was moving with purpose directly toward his fleet. They think they can intimidate us, he told his warriors. Show them the power of Krell determination. Prepare to fire when in range. Aboard the Horizon, Chief Engineer Maria Sanchez rushed to complete her work. For weeks she had been adapting Horizon's defensive systems based on her own unique theories. Now those adaptations would be tested in combat. Engineering to bridge, she called. The modified shield system is online. It should work as designed, but I've never tested it under combat conditions. Understood, Chief. Perry replied. We're in LT Uncan GT, about to find out how good your work is. The Krell ships opened fire first. Energy beams lanced out across space, striking the Horizon shields. The human ship rocked slightly but continued its advance. Shields holding at 92%, reported the tactical officer. Perry nodded. Target their weapon systems only. Execute Sanchez protocol. The Horizon fired back, not with destructive energy beams, but with precisely targeted electromagnetic pulses. The pulses washed over the Krell ships, causing their systems to flicker and die. One by one, the Krell vessels went dark, floating helplessly in space. No explosions, no destruction, just 20 ships full of confused and frightened Krell warriors, suddenly without power or weapons. It worked, Sanchez said with satisfaction, watching the readings from engineering. Not a single ship destroyed on his powerless vessel. Grow stared in disbelief at the dead controls. The Centurions had promised the humans would be no match for their new weapons. Instead, in a single attack, the humans had disabled his entire fleet without destroying a single ship. They could have killed us all. His second-in-command whispered. Why didn't they? Grow had no answer. 24 hours later, in Earth's lunar diplomatic facility, Ambassador Miller viewed footage of the Krell fleet being towed to a human space station. Commander Perry had captured all 20 ships intact, along with their crews, and most importantly, proof of Centurion involvement. This is perfect, Miller told President Carter over the secure line. We now have justification to establish a defensive perimeter that doubles our territory. The Centurions' plan has backfired completely, and the Krell. Carter asked. They're being treated well. Many seem relieved to be away from Centurion influence. Their leader, this Krell, has asked to speak with human representatives. He says his people have been used. Carter considered. This offered them a deal. Their freedom, and their ships back in exchange for mining rights in their home system and a mutual defense pact. Miller smiled. That would give us a foothold on the other side of Centaurian space. They'll be surrounded. Exactly, the president replied. Let's see how they like having uncomfortable neighbors. The proxy war had ended before it truly began, with humanity gaining more than it had risked. The galaxy was learning a difficult lesson. Provoking humans was becoming a very costly mistake. 1 year had passed since humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Council, the council once the center of interstellar politics. Existed now in name only. Most species had withdrawn their representatives. After the failed Krell attack, others simply stopped attending meetings. The Grand Chamber that had hosted debates for centuries now stood empty most days. In Earth's lunar diplomatic facility, Chief Negotiator Daniel White looked out the window at the blue planet hanging in the black sky. After a year of isolation, Earth was finally ready to speak with the galaxy again, but on its own terms. They're here, said his assistant. The Aqualarian shuttle just docked. White nodded. How many? 6 representatives. The Aqualarian speaker Gulksith is leading them personally. This was significant. Speakers rarely left their water-rich home world. That Gulksith had come in person showed how serious the situation had become. In the conference room, 6 alien representatives waited nervously. Besides the 4-armed Aqualarian speaker, there was a Volter admiral, Zenturian trade minister, and representatives from 3 smaller species that had previously been council members. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us, Speaker G said when White entered. His translator converted his bubbling speech into clear English. The past year has been difficult for many worlds. White took his seat at the table alongside Strategic Advisor Nickel Ross. Earth appreciates your willingness to travel here. That shows good faith. The Centaurian Trade Minister spoke next, her tone less humble. Let's be direct. The withdrawal of humanity has created significant hardships. Many systems are suffering from resource shortages and security concerns, not to mention the complete collapse of the Council itself. Added the Volter Admiral, the institution that maintained peace for 1,000 years, is now basically dead. White exchanged a glance with Ross. Before responding, the Council maintained peace for the benefit of certain species, while others, including humans, were often used rather than treated as equals. We acknowledge mistakes were made, Speaker Gith said quickly. That is why we are here, not to beg for Earth's return to a broken system, but to propose a new framework for interstellar cooperation, one that treats humans as true equals. White leaned forward. We're listening. For the next 6 hours, the delegation outlined their proposal. A new alliance would replace the old council. Each species would have truly equal representation, based on population, not the tiered system that had favored the founding species. Resource sharing would be negotiated fairly. Defense responsibilities would be shared proportionally. When they finished, White and Ross stepped out to consult with Earth's leadership via secure communication. They're desperate, Ross observed. Look at the Centaurians. 6 months ago, they were arming the Krell against us. Now they're practically begging to be our friends. White nodded. But is their proposal workable? Can we trust them? President Carter's voice came through the speaker. Trust must be earned. Present our conditions. When they returned to the conference room, White placed a data tablet on the table. Earth is willing to consider a new interstellar alliance, but we have conditions that are non-negotiable. The aliens leaned forward as he listed Earth's terms. The new alliance headquarters would be built on Europa. Not alien space. Technology sharing would be reciprocal and fair. No species could block human colony expansion. Military commands would rotate equally among all member species. These are significant changes from the old system. The Volter admiral said slowly. Yes. White agreed. The old system failed. We will not return to it. Speaker G's four hands made a gesture of acceptance. We did not come all this way to leave empty-handed. We are prepared to accept Earth's terms with perhaps some minor adjustments to the details. As the meeting continued into the night, messages spread across the galaxy. Humanity was returning to interstellar politics, but not as a junior partner or useful tool. This time they were setting the rules. The new galactic order was taking shape. 5 years had passed since humanity's bold retreat from diplomacy. The galaxy was now a very different place. The old Galactic Council building on Proxima Centauri stood empty, a museum to a failed system. In its place, a gleaming new structure orbited Jupiter's moon Europa, the headquarters of the new Galactic Alliance. Captain Eric Johnson stood on the bridge of the U.S. Liberty, Earth's newest flagship. The massive vessel represented the pinnacle of human engineering, but unlike ships of the past, the Liberty carried a mixed crew. Humans worked alongside Equilians, reformed vultures, Centaurians, and even a contingent of Krell warriors. Captain, we're ready to jump, said his first officer, Lisa Price. All systems show green. Johnson nodded. Take us out. Commander. Beyond the Sagittarius arm, the Liberty's engines hummed as the ship prepared to venture beyond known space. This was the Alliance's first major exploration mission since its formation. The mission represented something that would have been impossible under the old Council: true cooperation among species. As equals, it's hard to believe how much has changed, Price said quietly, standing beside her captain. 5 years ago, half this crew would have considered the other half enemies. Johnson smiled. Amazing what can happen when everyone is treated fairly. Back on Earth, former President Susan Carter sat in her garden, enjoying retirement. Across from her sat Ambassador John Miller, the man who had packed up his office and walked away from the council. That fateful day, the Centurion ambassador came to see me yesterday, Miller said, sipping his tea. He actually apologized for their behavior during the council years, said they've learned more about cooperation in 5 years of the Alliance than in centuries before. Carter laughed softly. They called our withdrawal a diplomatic tantrum at the time. Now they admit it was the best thing that could have happened. Sometimes you have to walk away from a bad deal to get a good one, Miller replied. On Europa Station, the Alliance Council was in session. Unlike the old days, the circular chamber had equal seats for all 27 member species. The current chairperson was actually Krell Chief Grow, whose failed attack years ago had become a turning point in galactic politics. The joint development project on TACDVI has exceeded all expectations, Grow announced to the Assembly. Shared technology has made the Planet habitable 3 years ahead of schedule. The Centaurian representative, once part of the most powerful empire in the galaxy, now just one voice among equals, spoke next. Our science division proposes we apply similar techniques to the struggling colonies in the Orion sector. The votes were tallied electronically, no species having more weight than another. The measure passed unanimously. In deep space at the very edge of explored territory, strain ships had been detected. Neither human nor any known council species had encountered these vessels before. They seemed to be scouting, testing defenses, looking for weaknesses. Aboard the Liberty, Captain Johnson received the report from Alliance Command. Unknown vessels approaching from the Galactic rim, sir. They haven't responded to communication attempts. Alert status. Johnson ordered, but maintain position. We represent the Alliance now, not just Earth. As the unknown ships approached, the Liberty stood ready, not alone as human ships once had to stand against threats, but as the vanguard of a united galaxy. Behind them, a fleet of ships from a dozen different worlds moved into support positions. First Officer Price looked at the tactical display showing the combined Alliance fleet. Do you think they know what they're getting into? She asked, indicating the approaching unknown vessels. Johnson shook his head. No, they probably think they found a divided galaxy they can exploit. They're about to learn otherwise on Earth. In schools across the planet, children learned about the Great Withdrawal as the turning point in human history. Teachers explained how sometimes standing up for yourself meant being willing to walk away, how Earth's diplomatic tantrum had reset the balance of power across the galaxy, and how by refusing to accept a bad deal, humanity had helped create something better for everyone.